Okay, uh, now we will learn about the cookies and sessions. Uh, then first, that one is what exact the cookies are. The cookie is often used to identify the user. Normally, everyone knows about the cookies, which one is used to speed up the process of net accessing, or it may be the uh, internet access helps to improve the performance of accessing speed with the help of cookies. Then what exact it uh, actual helpful to increase the speed, or it may be improve the performance. What is a cookie? Is used to identify user. Is a small file that the server embeds on the user's computer. Cookies, that one is available with a browser, or it may be on a user's computer. Then same computer request a page with a browser, it will send the cookies to. At the first request, when the client send a request to server send the cookies to the browser with with the PHP. You can both create and retry the cookies values. Okay, this is simply what is the cookies. Create a cookies with PHP, that is simply the function set cookies. Which one is actual the we already uh, learn about this under the HTTP response functions. It comes under the HTTP response function set cookies. Okay, then syntax, that one is a set cookies name, value, expire, date or time, path, domain, secure, and the policy. Only the name parameter is required, all other parameter are optional. Okay, then next point, that one is a PHP create a retry cookie. Then if you want to create the cookies, it's create with the set cookies function. Then we will understand it with the code. This is simply the cookies name, then cookies value, then set cookies function with the cookies name and cookies value with the time span of that cookies or life of that cookies. That one is simply the 86400 is a 1 day, and it's multiply with 30 means this cookie is stored on a browser for 30 days. Okay, then HTML, this is basic code. Then this is a simple condition which when you check out the cookies is set or not, and it prints the output as per the condition. This is simply a code related to the cookies or the set the cookies. We will run this code and verifies how exact the cookies are set. Okay, Control V, save, then okay, simply reload. The particular is a user, then the value is a John plus Dio, then localhost, then this is the expiry date which is mentioned with the today's 23 and 23 March, and the expiry date with the 22 April. Okay, this is simply the expiry date which one is already we execute with the code. This is simply the cookies set. Then next, that one is how exact it send cookies is automatically URI included when sending the cookies. Then next, how to modify a cookies, that is modify a cookie just with the help of set cookie, change the value. Like previously the cookies values is John, now it's Alex. This is simply the way to modify the cookies. And then this is again the expiry time is again the 1 day. It's not a one, yeah, it's a not a 1 day, it's again a 30 days. then simply the other code is same as it is. Then to delete the cookies, then we use the simply the mention as time with a less means existing time, that one is with a 1 month, and we just do existing time means the current time minus some value, means it's again the old, it shows the old time, means this cookie as a set as a delete cookies because of this time, current time minus some time, means it's a previous time, it's a old time, that's why that cookie is considered as a deleted cookies. This is a way to delete the cookies. Then check if cookies are enabled. This is simply the function with the help of that set cookies, that one is test with the if condition. If cookies is greater than 0, that one is count of that is greater than 0, means that cookies are enabled. And if it is in a minus, then that cookies are disabled. This is the way to enable and disable the cookies. Then advantage and disadvantage of cookies. It's simply the it can persist for a day, month, or even a year under the browser. Cookies are stored on a client hard disk, so if the server crashes, they are still available. Transparent, transparently without the user being aware that information need to be stored. Uh, like we access some website, it's automatically access the cookies behind the screen and it's used. That's why it's a transparent, uh, transparently without the cookies work transparently without the user being aware about that. Then lighten the load on a server memory. Actually, it's run under the browser. That's why it's a lighten it. Then disadvantage, sometime client disable the cookies. Sometime it browser pop-up gives us some pop-up like cookies are disabled. Then we enable it, and then particular server sends that file to a browser, and it's again the workable, right? Cookies are limited that cannot store complex information. It store a small information under the cookies. It's easily accessible and readable. User can easily access and read it. Then browser restrict the number of cookies. Its cookies have a limitation like a particular Internet Explorer stored only a 20 means attempt of cookies, and older it's automatically deleted. That's why it's restricted. These are the simply the use of cookies. Then PHP session, a alternate way to make a data accessible across the various pages. If particular web application contain the multiple pages, then for communication between the two pages, then whatever the execution with the help of that application, we definitely access the multiple pages under that application. Means we need to maintain the common data, which one is every page used, that one is maintained with the session create a file in a temporary directory on a server. This is actually stored on a server. Data will be available to all pages, right? Location of temporary file determined by setting up in the actual that path set with under the php.ini file, which is set the path. And then this is simply the how exact the session is work with the particular process. It creates a unique identifier. Simply, this is a one unique identify code when the session is created. It's a random number. Then cookies called PHP session ID. When session is created, the cookies related to that session is automatically created with the PHP session ID. Then it sends to the user computer, and the unique session ID stored in that cookies. Okay, server creates the session ID, and send it with under the cookies to the browser or the user. Then session end when the user loses the browser or close the browser or leave the site. This is or it may be automatically commonly after the 30 minutes it's end. That is simply the session end process. We already know the session ending. It's definitely used for security point of view. Then this is simply the way with the help of we understand is a login flow and how exact the session and cookies are work with the login page. Open the login page, then validate the credential, then server create a new session for login page, then generates unique random number which is called session ID, creates a new file on the server which is used to store the session specific information, which is all pages of application will be used. A session ID is passed back to the user with the help of the cookies, and that cookie's name is a PHP session ID cookie. Then cookies are allowed by browser. It will save this PHP session ID cookie which stores the session ID passed by server. And whenever the particular client communicate with the server, then this session ID is used and particular action run under the particular session. This is how exact it maintained. Okay, this is simply the one diagrammatic view of how exact the client and server run with the help of session and the cookies. Request a resource, client request a resource to a server, server response with the resource and the unique session ID. Subsequent request contain the session ID, and then server remember the user for the session ID and return the personalized response. This is how exact it work time to time, right? This is simply the client server with the session. The session is a way to store the information to used across the multiple pages, not stored on the user computer. It stores on the particular server. Then what is a PHP session? When you work with the application, you open it, do some changes, and then you close it. That is simply the way access some website, then log in it and execute some actions and then close it. That process called as a session. Okay, then start a PHP session. Simply PHP session start with the session start function. Whenever we want to execute any page with the session, then you need to mention the session start function under that. This is simply the code. That one is actual the start the session, that is PHP session start. Then it's variable related to the session, like favorite color, then animal, which is used under the every pages. Then this is simply the start the session start function. Then all session variables value are stored in a global session variable. That is simply the super global variable $_session. All the session variables stored under this array and utilize it time to time. Anywhere we can access that $_session code. Then this is simple the example. If we want to print it, we can directly access this super global variable with the print_r function. Then if you want to modify a PHP session, then you can directly change that variable values. We've already assigned as a favorite color as a green. We will change it here as a yellow. That's called modify a PHP session variable. Then destroy a PHP session. That means the session unset and the session destroy. That one is, it may be done with automatically, or you mention some time span for that. This is simply the session unset. Session unset is used to remove all global variable, and session destroyed used to destroyed the session. Okay, this is simply the how exact session is work. We will check it with some. This user and John both are the cookies. Both are the cookies. This is particular normal cookies, but this is the PHP session ID is automatically generated because of the when we start the session it's automatically generated. This is the actual code value, that is the session ID. Okay, this is the session ID. We can see here is a hexa value, right? Then particular these are the cookies and the all data which one is stored under the session storage, right? Store the other values here. Okay, and the cookie store here. This is the end with the cookies and